Good Wednesday morning, and thank you for joining us here on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Jason Hackett. Let's get to your headlines. Just in this morning, U.S. Border Czar Tom Homan sharing an update on Operation Metro Surge. Homan says 700 agents are leaving the state today. That's after a, quote, unprecedented number of county jails that are now working with the feds to transfer inmates with ICE detainers into ICE custody. He says working together is making the Twin Cities safer.
We currently have an unprecedented number of counties communicating with us now and allowing ICE to take custody of illegal aliens before they hit the streets. Unprecedented cooperation. This is efficient, requires only 1 or 2 officers to assume custody of a criminal alien target rather than 8 or 10 officers going into the community and arresting that public safety threat. This frees up more officers to arrest or remove criminal aliens. More officers taking custody of criminal aliens directly from the jails means less officers on the street doing criminal operations. This is smart law enforcement, not less law enforcement.
New this morning, Minnesota schools and educators are now suing to block federal immigration enforcement near Minnesota schools. The lawsuit says the Department of Homeland Security and ICE activity is disrupting education and attendance. We heard this concern echoed at the Capitol, including from Governor Walz. Yesterday, the governor put new pressure on the federal government, sending a letter to Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, demanding answers about how many Minnesota children have been detained by immigration authorities. He's also asking where those children are being held and calling on federal officials to halt immigration enforcement actions at schools. This comes as Tom Homan has said agents may enter schools if they believe there's a serious public safety threat. Walz says he spoke with Homan yesterday morning and gave him a clear message.
We're not in a negotiation. We're not in a demand. My expectation is draw down these forces, get them all out of here.
The news conference is scheduled for 3 p.m. at the state capitol. We're going to carry that live for you right here on KARE 11 Plus. Any drawdown of federal agents will be welcome news for Minneapolis officials who say the city is losing north of $20 million a week. That data comes from a dramatic drop in foot traffic and revenue from people too scared to shop or work, particularly on the Lake Street corridor.
We knew this was going to be pretty brutal. I like to quantify it as like we have a $100 problem and the city probably has a nickel or a dime, maybe a quarter to put towards that problem. But we had a federal partner in the recovery, and I'm worried and concerned that we won't have that partner. We're all part of the same state. We're all part of the same economy.
Well, it has been a month since the shooting death of Renee Good by a federal agent. Good's brothers testified on Capitol Hill in the last 24 hours. Each of them spoke for about 5 minutes. They described feelings of loss and their desire to see things change.
She believed in second chances. She believed tomorrow could be better than today. She believed that kindness mattered, and she lived that belief.
In the last few weeks, our family took some consolation, thinking that perhaps Nay's death would bring about change in our country, and it has not.
We are live in D.C. this morning, just hours after President Trump signed a spending package ending the partial government shutdown. That bill will fund the government through September, but it also creates another funding issue for Homeland Security. Now lawmakers have less than 2 weeks to work out a deal on changes to DHS. Democrats want to see reforms, including stricter rules around warrants and requiring agents to remove their masks. However, some leaders say they're not sure the two parties can reach an agreement.
ICE and the Department of Homeland Security need to dramatically change.
And so if the Democrats want to throw out these ridiculous proposals that make it harder for ICE to do their job, that's just not going to happen.
DHS funding now expires on February 13th. Developing right now, President Trump is pushing to nationalize elections after pushing repeatedly false claims that the 2020 election that he lost was rife with voter fraud. Democrats are sounding warning bells while Republicans are trying to clarify the president's stance. Alice Barr is in D.C. with details.
Hi there. President Trump is facing pushback from both parties over his comments about elections that contradict the Constitution and come amid an investigation in Georgia that has Democrats raising their own concerns about election security. President Trump doubling down.
I want to see elections be honest.
On controversial comments out this week in a podcast with his former deputy FBI director.
The Republicans should say, we want to take over. We should take over the voting and at least many, 15 places. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting.
Democrats calling that an assault on the Constitution, which dictates that the states run elections.
This is more dangerous autocratic poison from Donald Trump.
Top Republicans in the House.
It's always been the responsibility of the states to administer elections.
And Senate also calling this a constitutional issue while pointing to the SAVE Act, a Republican bill requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote that the White House said President Trump was referencing.
Ensuring that only citizens of this country vote in our elections, that's something I think we all agree with.
It's already illegal for non-citizens to vote in federal and state elections. It all comes as President Trump continues to falsely assert the debunked claim that the 2020 election was stolen through widespread fraud. In a dramatic escalation, the FBI last week raided a Fulton County, Georgia election center, seizing ballots and other records related to the 2020 election. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard observed the raid, and two sources say she facilitated President Trump speaking by phone directly to FBI agents involved in the search, sparking more outrage among Democrats as a senior administration official pointed to Gabbard's role in election security. The top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, Mark Warner, is calling on DNI Gabbard to testify before Congress while accusing the Trump administration of dismantling election protections against foreign and cyber threats. Gabbard told the House and Senate Intelligence Committees she has broad authority to ensure that U.S. elections are secure and will share her assessments once complete. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Well, back here at home today, the woman accused of killing an infant at Rocking Horse Ranch in Savage will head to court for her first appearance. Police say 18-year-old Thea Russell confessed to killing Harvey Mucklebust back in September, days before his first birthday. Russell told police she choked him because he would not stop crying. She also admitted to abusing another 4-month-old just days earlier. Her hearing is set to start at 1:30 this afternoon. This morning, a shocking guilty plea just as a jury was being seated for a retrial in the murder of Minneapolis student athlete Deshaun Hill Jr. In 2023, a jury found Cody Forencam guilty of murdering Hill after the two brushed shoulders during a chance encounter on a sidewalk in 2022. Forencam's conviction was later thrown out because of legal questions over how a key piece of evidence, his interview with police, was obtained. Forencam's retrial was just getting started this week when he took a deal and pled guilty, meaning he'll spend less time in prison. Hill's family tells us they are shocked and angry.
I just don't understand. I don't understand. How can y'all allow this to happen? He already got convicted. He was found guilty. I was cool with that. He got his 38 years. I was good. I was able to grieve. My family was able to move on with our life.
Really tough for that family. So Forencam will now serve a sentence of 28 years, 10 years shorter than his original sentence. Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty says this plea holds Forencam accountable and, quote, ensures that he is not able to harm anyone else. Forencam will be sentenced in March. Today, local leaders and community activists will come together to speak out against Children's Minnesota and its decision to pause gender-affirming care services. The hospital says it will stop prescribing puberty-suppressing medications and hormones for patients under 18 starting on February 27th. Children's says they made the decision after seeing an increase in federal actions against hospitals that provide this type of care. The hospital's Gender Health Center is not closed and will still keep providing mental health care and medical and non-medical guidance for patients. We're just 2 days out from the official start of the Winter Olympics, and this morning, downhill skiing legend and Minnesota native Lindsey Vonn says she will power through with a torn ACL to compete. This comes after Vonn was airlifted from a crash on Friday. Vonn says since then, she's had 3 days of physical therapy and doctor consultations. She says she feels confident that she can ski, saying her knee is stable and not swollen. She says she thinks her past experience with injuries has given her confidence in what she can do.
I know what my chances were before the crash, and I know my chances aren't the same as it stands today, but I know there's still a chance. And as long as there's a chance, I will try.
So Vonn actually has a partial knee replacement on her other knee. The women's downhill skiing training session is scheduled for tomorrow. That's going to be quite the story to watch over the next few days. Make sure you stick with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.